Hi folks, Lord Xenon here, along with Violet Willow, and Emerald Carby is somewhere around here. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Hi, Carby. And today we're here, this is actually not going to be a video on our next trial, which is Ifrit Normal Mode, but since I've been considering getting all of my, getting my HUD updated, in preparation for some of the next trials, basically to make my HUD more similar to the one I use on my main, Xenon Denuclide, I decided to show you a little bit about how to set up extended and cross hotbars on your controller settings. If you're an experienced controller player in Final Fantasy XIV, you know all of this. Of course, if you're an experienced controller player in Final Fantasy XIV, you're probably not learning anything from my videos. You're just watching them for entertainment value. And again, if you're doing so and you're entertained by this, then I'm pleased that you're enjoying yourself. But for those of you who don't know about controller setup in Final Fantasy XIV and want to learn a few things, you'll notice that the way the cross hotbar is set up to begin with, it only gives you 16 slots for abilities. I'm only at level 25 on this character right now, and I have all 16 slots taken up, and there are some abilities I haven't slotted. So as a controller player, you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Am I just going to cycle through different hotbars and use abilities as, and try to toggle through, cycle through different screens, select different abilities? It's a very frustrating thing. Fortunately, the good folks at Square Enix, the designers of this game, have given us controller players some alternatives to expand our available slots and that we can switch to very easily. But in order to do that, you need to set them up. And in order to set them up, you need to go into your menu, go into System, Character Configuration, and go into the menu that says Hotbar Settings, and the far right tab, which is Custom. I have it set up right now. You need to check these top two check boxes: Expanded Hold Controls and WXHB. Now, I have it set on my personal controller preferences to use the L1 and R1 buttons to select the icons on the cross hotbar. I think by default they're set up for L2 and R2. I switched it to L1 and R1 just as a personal preference. So if you are using the default settings of L2 and R2, just whenever I say L1 and R1, think L2 and R2. So there is a great deal of customization that can be done in these settings. My personal preference is to set Expanded Hold Controls L1 R1 to cross hotbar 2 left, L2 R2 to cross hotbar 2 right. And then for the WXHB, I do the same thing except cross hotbar 3. I also make sure that the setting Enable Directional Buttons is also set for the WXHB. I then go into the cross hotbar settings. This, of course, is optional too, but I find it a little easier to work with. I choose to always display WXHB and to position WXHB separately from XHB. And apply the changes and back out. Now you'll notice that up above the cross hotbar, I've got another set of cross hotbars. That is the WXHB, or the W cross hotbar. This is actually representing what is cross hotbar tab number 3. And I'll just show you, just for the sake of demonstration, I set up on cross hotbar 2. I have brake on the left and drain on the right, just to show you. And then on 3, I have diversion on the left and lucid dreaming on the right, which, as you can see, is now up above in that cross hotbar. So how do I access these 2 additional hotbars? Well, it's very simple. First off, the expanded controls, which are what we have set to cross hotbar number 2. In order to do that, to get the ones on the left-hand side of cross hotbar 2, hold down the L button and then the R button, and what you have now is a set the set of buttons that are on cross hotbar 2 on the left. If you do right first and then left, now you have the buttons that are on cross hotbar 2 right. So this gives you 16 more buttons to work with simply by holding down both L1 and R1 in the case of my settings, or L2 and R2 if that's the way you have your controls set up. Now, as for the W cross hotbar, the ones up above, you simply access it by double tapping the appropriate side. So if I double tap my L1, now I have access to this upper setting, which is my cross hotbar 3 on the left. If I double tap R2, or if I double tap my R1, then I have access to the commands on cross hotbar 3 right. That gives me an additional 16 for a total of 48 buttons that I now have easy access to. This, of course, very much expands the functionality of the controller and gives you a lot more customization options. You know, where you set all of your abilities, of course, is going to be a matter of personal preference. I have certain ways that I like setting things up. For instance, on my W cross hotbar, I usually like to have a lot of my utility spells. You'll probably see in later videos that I have my summon spells up on the W cross. Things that I use, but I don't use often enough that I need to have it right away. Obviously, my bread and butter spells are going to be right here on hotbar 1, and alternate options. I'm mainly alternate attacks. I'm usually going to have on 2 right, because usually my main attacks I have over here on. This is just my personal preference. I usually have my main attacks on the right, and kind of a secondary set of attacks on 2 right. Left, I usually have a bunch of like quick use utility moves, other utility moves on 2 left, and then things like summoning and resurrection and stuff. I'll usually things that I may use once in a while, but I'm not really spamming in battle. I'll put on the W cross. And you'll see, by the time I actually start my next video, you're going to see some considerable differences in the HUD layout. I intend to move around a few things on the HUD, like especially my my buffs and the buff and debuff markers. I very recently started putting them on my main a lot closer to the center, or to the cross hotbars, and it actually so that my buffs and debuffs are very readily visible as I'm looking at my combos and whatnot, and not relegated to the top of the screen, which I'm not necessarily looking at in the heat of battle. So yeah, you'll see a few tweaks to the HUD by the next video, and that's just kind of why. But I wanted to do this kind of brief video for people who weren't familiar with the expanded hotbar or the W cross hotbar. And again, if you're playing controller for any length of time in this game, it's just something you need to know. And if you've been playing with controller for a long time, you probably already know all this stuff. But if you are not aware of it and are playing the game, or are playing the game for the first time, or thinking of starting the game, this is a very important thing to know if you're going to be playing on a controller. Now, for keyboard and mouse, you're probably going to have to consult another player. I started playing this on PS3, which did not have keyboard and mouse support. I switched to PS4, and PS4 actually does have keyboard and mouse support. You can play with keyboard and mouse on the PlayStation 4 if you so desire. But by the time I got my PlayStation 4, I'd been playing this game for over a year. I was used to controller, and I just really haven't been able to make the switch. Besides, really, if you get used to it, controller is a very viable way of playing this game. There are a few notable disadvantages, especially regarding targeting in 24-man raids, but for the most part, this game is very playable with controller. Again, it's what I've been doing for the 5 years I've been playing, and it's just, once you learn all the tricks, it's a very viable way of playing, and I hope you learned a couple tricks today. And until I finally get Ifrit unlocked and start recording that, have a wonderful day, and join us for the next video.